Hello everyone, KidKinobi here with a semi-long video which did not plan out to be this long, but I had 18 stale peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and one piece of chicken and a bunch of coffee, so let's just see how this goes. So as you may know, Boon made a recent Twitter poll and Maximilian Dude talked about it, Uncaged Games talked about it, and I figured me with my no audience decided, you know what? Let's talk about it and give my own personal thoughts. Okay, let me just preface that I am currently full of 3.5 peanut butter and jelly stale sandwiches, so just if I sound bloated, that's why. Okay, so Boon tweeted on September 9th, 2022, 8:29 p.m. What do you want to see from NetherRealm Studios next? Injustice 3, Marvel game, Marvel vs. DC, or next Mortal Kombat? Injustice 3 got 20.4%, Marvel game got 11.4%, Marvel vs. DC got 40.9% and is what I voted for, and next Mortal Kombat, finally with 27.3%. And in total, 161,562 votes as the final result. That's an insane amount. Okay, so I basically organized all my thoughts here on this notepad document. Alright, let's start from the top. Injustice 3. Basic thoughts are that we could go multiple different directions. First off, to address the split ending from Injustice 2. As a quick refresher, one ending, if you choose Batman and he wins, Batman sends Superman to jail again, and that will probably lead to a story mode of him breaking out, yada yada yada, repeat. It's reused territory. I'm sure they could do something different with it, but on the surface we have seen it before. The other path was Superman wins, he kills Brainiac, takes his gadgets, brainwashes everyone, and that would probably lead to a somewhat revolution takedown of Techno Superman, which would be different and interesting. Now, there's also a curveball path where it could just be anything. They could ignore the endings. They could say time travel, multiverse. They could just say, fuck it, He-Man shows up and just wrecks shop, just like in that comic for some reason. I also have my proposal, which is we do the dark multiverse. We use the Batman Who Laughs, Barbados, all those very fun, interesting takes on dark characters. So we could go that direction also. The other point I have is that it would also fit the old release schedule that we're used to of Mortal Kombat Injustice, Mortal Kombat Injustice, Mortal Kombat Injustice. Granted, it is a bit up in the air if that is still the same timetable. I know there was like a quote from Boon or saying like, we may be doing that, who knows, maybe, I don't know. And there's also the absence of the announcement and the amount of time, which would get people to think, are they really working on something as simple as Injustice 3 doing the same basic stuff? There's also a ton of new DC properties to use. Black Adam, I'm sure Dwayne Johnson would show up to the studio. He showed up for Fortnite. Granted, my conspiracy is that this could just straight up be Marvel vs. DC option that he listed. Or it could just have a ending DLC tease at the end of the lifetime for Injustice 3. We have Spider-Man, Iron Man, Wolverine, insert whatever Marvel character, just show up in the last pack like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did. You could do that. The next choice was Marvel game. And this could be anything. Now, first and foremost, it would be brand new licensing. It would be working with Marvel. It would not be working with Warner Brothers and their tentpole of characters. It would most likely include a bunch of new mechanics because Injustice brought several things like interactables in the stage, no block button, clash system. Yeah, because NetherRealm is usually good at separating and diversifying and making sure each game does feel different from each other. They're not lazy. It would also include a new story. Now, what that story could be, who knows? But the basics of a fighting game story, especially one with comic books, is that you have to justify the good guys fighting the good guys, bad guys fighting bad guys, good. It needs to be a Royal Rumble situation. How they did it was Injustice was, hey, alternate universe, and they're evil. Very simple. Now, what they could do with Marvel is a basic Civil War, be that Civil War 1, Civil War 2. You could just do a multiverse story, and that could just literally be portals and incursion events. You could do Secret Wars. Also, there is Battle World, which is literally just take a mosh pit of characters and just bash them all together and just make them fight. So there's plenty of things to choose from, or just go an original path, but there's plenty of stuff to get influences from. Now, there would be an inherent struggle in the roster of baseline versus trending MCU characters. And what do I mean by that? If you look at the current MCU, they're pushing new characters and previously background characters. It also has the inherent difficulty of being compared to Marvel vs. Capcom, because Marvel vs. Capcom did tackle a bunch of the baseline and unorthodox Marvel characters. They gave them very flashy animations, lots of characteristics that are very unique and immediately come to a lot of the fighting game community's forefront mind when they think of a Marvel character in a fighting game. And also the franchise has been around for so long too. So they would have to compete with that. And granted, as the final conspiracy little tidbit, it could just straight up be the Marvel game could be the Marvel vs. DC. Now let's get to the big wombo jumbo option, Marvel vs. DC. First off, it would shatter the internet. We all know it. It would also be a roster nightmare that I would not want to endeavor. Because first off, it would, if we're looking at just roster size, if they're going the basic way of what they usually trend to do of 30, maybe a few more through DLC, it would end up being roughly 15 characters per side. Now, granted, they could go something insane like and do 50 characters in the roster. That way it would breathe and have 25 characters per side, which is also an insane undertaking. I don't even know if they could do it. Granted, they have had more time in between games than they had for the past few, so you could justify of if they did 30 in a year and a half, after multiple years, maybe they could do 50. I don't know, especially if they end up reusing a lot of Injustice. That would ease the burden. They could also make things easier for themselves if they utilize the premier skins that were used in Injustice 2, combo them with custom skills that we've seen in Injustice and Mortal Kombat 11. What I mean by that is, instead of having Hawkeye and Green Arrow, who are two pretty important mainstream characters for both of their franchise, you could just have one or the other and have a premier skin that showcases the other one. So for example, Green Arrow could have a skill that has the punching bag arrow, while Hawkeye has a Pimtech arrow. You know what I mean? So that's how you could differentiate and have both technically be in the game, but not have to program two different types of archers. They could have the same exact moves, just like how Flash and Reverse Flash are two different people, but since they have the same power set, just give them slightly different things that the player can choose or comes baseline, and there you go. And you could do this for a ton of characters. You could have Hulk, Solomon Grundy, Flash, Quicksilver. At a stretch, you could probably do Black Widow, Black Canary. You could get multiple Spider people. You could get Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, Man-Thing, Swamp Thing, Doctor Strange, Dr. Fate. I mean, it's kind of a written joke that a lot of characters are taken and stolen from each other's company, and it would be a little bit meta to actually just straight up do that, but that is an easy way where you can have more characters, but they don't actually have to go the extra mile and make each character unique and different. And this also could be a once-in-a-lifetime event game, unless they have the contracts and goodwill of both companies nailed down. And I don't mean just Marvel DC, I mean Warner Brothers and Disney, the real overlords of both of these. If they can get them to play ball with each other, then we're set. We're gold. Like, this is the best case scenario. Now, some people might be saying, oh, there's no precedent. Oh, there is precedent. And now, granted, you could say, oh yeah, there's easily precedent. Just look at Fortnite. You have Iron Man, Spider-Man, Captain America, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, all running around shooting guns at each other in Fortnite. And straight up, like I said, part of my conspiracy is that this could just be Injustice 3 and the Marvel game wrapped up. So Ed Boon isn't lying, and he is actually being straight up honest. Now, let's go on to next Mortal Kombat. First off, this would be expected in a good and bad way. Good way is that everyone loves a little bit of Mortal Kombat. Bad way is that it would get people thinking, oh, are you guys just not going to do anything else except Mortal Kombat now because you've done Mortal Kombat last time and you're doubling down on Mortal Kombat? Now, there is a way that it could be different, because they could just straight up reboot everything again in a plain way of, we just say, all right, we're just starting over again. Or it could be following the new timelines that were made in the Aftermath DLC for Mortal Kombat 11. Now, notably, when you compare of how he wrote everything, he wrote Injustice 3, which is a definitive number title, Marvel game, which is very vague, Marvel vs. DC, which is more solidified into a vision, and then you have Next Mortal Kombat. The fact that it's called Next Mortal Kombat could be very specific, or it could just be a throwaway. It could mean that there is not going to be a Mortal Kombat 12. It's going to be some variation of Mortal Kombat, where it's either a collector edition where everything and every character is back. It could be a complete reboot starting at one completely original characters. It could also just have Mortal Kombat not go in the fighting game direction and instead go Shaolin monks. A Mortal Kombat Ultimate, Everyone is Here, would definitely be very interesting. I don't know how they would do a story that fits them all in. You would have the licensing problems with the DLC guest characters like Kratos, Jason, Freddy, Predator, Alien. Granted, half of them are in Fortnite already, so it may not be that difficult. Once again, Fortnite, I say, has made every dream possible at this point. And also, another thing to point to is the fact that we have like a Mortal Kombat anniversary occurring. Now, does that mean he's going to announce it anytime when the anniversary drops, or is it just going to be afterwards, or they're completely going to ignore it? Who knows? Okay, the next NetherRealm game, best case scenario, would come out next year, 2023, right? And then give it maybe a year, 2 years, next game come out 2025. Give it another 2 years, 2027. Another 2-ish years on average, then you will get 2023. Christ. Okay, so if we're looking at if every option on the list gets made into a video game in a realistic time frame that provides each game gets supported for roughly 2 years, which I think is a good breathable amount per game, so they can work on the next game while still supporting and adding a few DLC packages maybe. So this is what the timeline looks like. Injustice 3, the most predictable choice, 2023 at best. That's best case scenario of practically the game's ready to go. We're just waiting on reveal. Then one game lifetime later, Mortal Kombat 12, whatever case that tends to be, 2025. Give that a few more years to breathe. Break the internet in 2027 with Marvel game. Give it a few more years to breathe. Then we're looking at 2029, Marvel vs. DC, which is, wow, that's gonna Jesus Christ, 2029. Now, granted, they could just straight up go Mortal Kombat 12, whatever, Marvel vs. DC, which on one hand would be very just gutting right to the point, and the benefit would be that we're all not fucking old when these games release. And you know, who knows. So that's basically my convoluted thoughts on everything. I don't even know how long I've been recording. Well, I'm going to stop, and thank you all for watching.